Yeah. Yeah. And my and
Come back, maybe come back a little bit. No, sir. I got it. Room. Sure. Sure. Ma'am, my name's back. Well, ya sé que se cerró, yo no sé qué es para nada, yo llamo. Pessoal, já chega sem Israel e vamos continuar you want to tear the garment with your sister and mother?
yes, and my
There's Julia, there's Julia, and Leah. Yeah, before you tear it, Liz, before you tear your garments, you'll say the blessing that we say, acknowledging that Hashem is the true judge. To practice to say Baruch.
Baruch, Atah, Adonai, Eloheinu,
Melech,
Melech,
Haolam, Dayan, Ha'emet.
Amen.
In a moment that Charlie is going to read some Tehillim and Julia.
Yes.
And just before, I'm going to say this especially to the family, but also to friends. It is the custom when we gather in the presence of the holy Aron. It is a custom to ask for forgiveness from the neshama. There's any way nobody is perfect. There's no way we could possibly have been perfect in our relationships. So he asks forgiveness for any errors that we made. Now Charlie is going to read a psalm with his Aunt Julia. You have it?
I have the English.
You have to tell him there.
Probably he doesn't
I
want
left
to
the
type
book.
it all that.
I left the book in the car. I have it in my car.
He's got it right there. You got it.
Is it right here?
English first.
No, caught it.
You have your own
I'm
phone?
sure he has.
Yeah,
to
you
know
want?
it.
Julian's gonna read the English.
Yeah, go ahead.
Happy is the man who is. Maybe John will read it.
Happy is the man who has not followed the counsel of the wicked, or taken the path of sinners, or joined the company of the insolent. Now that the teaching of the Lord is his delight, and he studies that teaching day and night. He is like a tree planted beside streams of water, which yields its fruits in season, whose foliage never fades, and whatever it produces thrives. Not so the wicked. Rather, they are like chaff that blows away in the wind. Therefore, the wicked will not survive judgment, nor will sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord cherishes the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked is doomed.
Asher ha'ish asher lo halach b'atzat rishayim u'b'derech chata'im lo amad u'b'moshav leitzim lo yashav ki im b'torat Adonai chefto torato yegeh yomam b'layla v'haya ke'etz shatu al palgei mayim asher piryo yitain v'ito lo yibol v'aleo lo yibol v'chol asher yaseh yatzliach lo chen harishayim ki im kamot asher tidfenu ruach al ken lo yakumu rishayim b'mishpat chata'im v'adat tzadikim ki yodea Adonai derech tzadikim v'derech rishayim toved.
You have another one.
No, we're just doing the one.
So just chant Psalm 23, which is a custom to do also at the site of. You have it there, Charles?
Yeah, should I read it?
Yeah, just read it.
Sure. Morla David, Adonai Ro'i Lo Echsar, Bino Teshe Yarbitzeni, Almei Menufot Ina Haleni, Nafshi Yeshovev, Yancheni V'magle Tzedek, Aman Shmo, Gam Ki Elech B'Gates Almavet, Lo Irara, Ki Atzayimadi, Shiftecha Umishantecha, Hema Yenachamuni, Haroch Ufanai Shulchan, Neget Tzorarai, Yishanta Vashem Roshi, Kosi Revaya, Achtov V'Chesed Yerdefuni, Koya Mechayai, Shavti Beit Adonai, Orech.
All right. And here today, Liz and Leah.
Okay, I'm gonna stand close to my mother so that she can hear me. Okay? Not too much. My father lived a full life and felt satisfied at the end. So often he remarked to me how lucky we are. The pandemic in many ways didn't affect him because he was living in quarantine already. There was no place he loved more than his home and his routines. And even when COVID somehow penetrated his home, he remained at ease. During one of our last conversations, he made a point of assuring me that he felt well taken care of. So even in his passing during a raging pandemic, he felt that he was among the lucky ones. The Talmud likens the passing of the soul from this world to the drawing of a hair from a bowl of milk. Effortless. His passing was exactly that. No discomfort or suffering, and I know all of my family is enormously grateful. My father was a force to be reckoned with. He was charismatic and mischievous. I was raised on a steady diet of the competitive banter that he enjoyed with his DC lawyer friends who are here today. Thank you. From that male intellectual sparring, I learned not to take intellectual criticism personally. I learned that disagreement is a source of energy and creativity. It was a gift to be able to share the personal and the professional with my father. And for me, the two were very intertwined. As a young girl in the 1970s, I was enchanted and enthralled with my father. When he would come home from work, he would sit on the edge of the bed and he would take off his shoes and stick out his feet, and the little girls would pat them. Do you remember that? Yeah. Yeah. We were probably preschool age and we were his adoring fans. In the 1980s and 90s, when I was in college and grad school, in a field very close to his, I was threatened by his looming persona. I needed to assert myself as an individual apart from him. And so, echoing his critics, I poo-pooed his scholarly bona fides, and I saw him as a dilettantish interloper. More recently, I've come to cherish our overlapping professional lives. I wrote the following words in the acknowledgments to my second book. An unexpected treat during the writing process was sharing each chapter fresh off the press with my father. Our subsequent conversations were deeply moving. He engaged the arguments as if they mattered. When I finished the final version of the epilogue, the very last page, I emailed him a copy saying, I won't feel it's done until it has seen the red ink of Hershel's pen. I am forever grateful to have had the opportunity to interact with him in a way that was both deeply personal and professionally sophisticated. The last 15 years of my parents' marriage were the most affectionate and loving that I recall. The mere presence of the other was a great comfort. At their 50th anniversary party, my father charmed everyone by getting down on his knee to reenact his proposal to her, which those of us who came after were not present for in the original. And we sang together his courtship song to her, which goes something like this. Feel free to sing along if you know the words. In the goopy part of Tormalina, I lost my heart. In the goopy part of Tormalina, I lost my heart. She was a little bit Jewish, a little bit Moorish, with a decidedly Jewish nose, cooling my toes. In the goofy part of Tormalina, I lost my heart. Hey, girl. My father felt his responsibilities very deeply, and one of his highest priorities was making sure that the women in his life were well prepared for. Chief among them, his wife, but also his mother, his daughters, and now his daughters' children. He loved desserts and sweets, and he loved kids. He used to talk about renting 2 little girls so that he could go to synagogue on Purim after Julia and I left the house. He delighted in the vitality of youth. He remained young at heart. Yes, he did. It is very hard to say goodbye to you, Abba. You were an amazing gift to all of us. You will surely be missed. Where is he? He's in the ground. He's in the ground already. Yep. Yep. Oh, thank you. Yep. Yeah. 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 Yeah, Leah, come up. Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Okay, yeah.
I know probably. I know Herschel longer than anyone here. I grew up with him. I was his sister, and he thought he was a sissy for having a sister when I was born, but he wasn't. But I will be brief because it's cold. I'd like to tell you this little story about him. He was a little boy. I was not born yet. He was no more than 4. And he went into a neighbor's yard and saw some flowers, and he decided to pick them for my mother. And he had been told repeatedly not to go pick the flowers. But Herschel, being Herschel, he picked them and he brought them home to my mother, who was embarrassed in front of the neighbor. And she immediately called the neighbor and said and apologized for Herschel picking his flowers. And that neighbor, in his wisdom, said, "Mrs. Shanks, that boy's going to amount to something." And he certainly did. He certainly did. Ironically, Herschel passed away on February 5th, last Friday. My father died on February 5th,
Wow.
1985, 36 years before him. And in that year of 1985, the 5th of February was the 26th of Shabbat, which is today. My father's yahrzeit,
Wow.
and my brother's yahrzeit. And I think of them up there, and they're looking down, and they're waiting for us because we will all join him and them. It's ironic that they are together, and I'm sure they're talking about a lot of things. I don't speculate on what it might be, but they're there, and we know it. We will all miss him. Herschel was a force. He was a good force. He was a good man. He was a kind man, and he was generous in every way, in his spirit, in financial need. And what can be said more than he was a good man? Thank you.
In just a moment, we'll begin the process of filling this sacred space with earth. And I know there's so many people here who have so many beautiful words to share, and there's going to be opportunities on Zoom and Shiva, and people had a lifetime of relationships, which can possibly be summed up in the cold, in a smaller service. My relationship with Herschel was very different than everybody's here. I first met him when he called me up and he said, "Can I come into your office?" And he said his name, and I said, "Okay." I knew who he was. I'll tell you why in a moment. He came into my office. He said, "I want to join the congregation. I'm not Orthodox, but people in my family are, and I have so much respect for them. And because of that, I want to join the congregation." And he said, "You're not going to see me a lot, but I'm going to pay my dues." And he paid his dues. He was very generous. Then one time he came in and he said he wanted to do a Prus Bowl. Nobody else in my 22 years in the rabbinate has ever done that. But then he wrote an article about it. You can look it up. Find the article. It's a very beautiful article, very sweet and touching article. But I actually met Hershel Shanks well before that, when I was in high school. And when the rabbi was sermonizing in synagogue, and I was not paying attention, I found this magazine. And I picked it up. And I became obsessed with biblical archaeological review. I said, this is so interesting, fascinating. I never heard of the Dead Sea Scrolls. He introduced it to me. It was just so engaging. And that's the reason why in college I decided to study ancient Judaism. And then I made the mistake of saying to my professor, well, Hershel Shanks says this, and the professor says, don't mention that. I said to that's when I realized I didn't want to be an academic, because I was thinking about it. There was nobody who's taught more Torah, who excited more people about the Bible than Hershel Shanks. He brought it to life. He made it relevant, meaningful, interesting, creative. It was such a blessing to be able to read those magazines. And that's just one aspect, just one small aspect of his life, about how he transformed my life, excited me and inspired me. And I'm sure he did that with hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of people who loved the Bible because of him. But of course, that's just one small aspect. It says in this week's parasha, Ve'ela mishpatim, these are your laws. And these are your laws. And it says in Rashi, Ma'elu nemru b'Sinai, af elu nemru b'Sinai. The previous portion was about Sinai. Sinai, we know the history of the Jewish people, followed by civil law. Both of those things, the giving of the Ten Commandments and civil law, both done at Sinai. And Hershel Shanks said both. A brilliant lawyer, a brilliant lover of our people's history, of our ancient past. But above all else, he was a person of family, person who loved his family deeply. That's why he came into my office that day, and that's why he continued to support us, and of his great love for all of the members of his family. So we're going to do the best we can of filling this hole with earth. I know that some people brought shovels. There's some shovels here. People think that they had exposure to COVID. I don't think it's a good idea to touch the shovels, but we can figure out some other ways. People brought some shovels. What do you suggest? Oh, you have gloves?
We brought 3 shovels.
Oh, you brought 3
Where's
shovels?
John?
Yeah, we have 3.
Oh, you have shovels. Okay, good. Okay, good. So we're just trying to be very careful.
Oh, those are our shovels.
Okay, good. Okay, so the first time you lift the shovel, you're supposed to do it backwards the first time. And then after that, the custom is you don't give the shovel to somebody else, but you just put it back in the earth, and then other people will do it.
And I think the custom is also maybe that the immediate mourners should be the first to put them dirt, or not necessarily.
That can be our custom today.
Go ahead.
Well,
Others have the custom and the mourners don't do it.
Oh, really?
But really, it's the custom in these parts that you do it first. I think.
that's sorry that I had seen, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you want to go first?
Let's be extremely careful. It's very slippery here. We don't want. We gotta be very careful.
Turn it upside down.
Yeah. Just Julia, watch your.
Yeah, they go from the top.
Yeah.
There you go. Here. We also have hand sanitizer if anybody else wants to do it. Thanks to Joyce Tarchinsky. Joyce.
Love you, Grandpa. We'll kill it. I know you will.
Joe said he gets us out.
And that's really here is Hershel.
So, you have next show on the
Oh, nice. Who's that? Andrew. Good to see you. Coming. Bye, Grandpa. Pretty great up there. Real hero. You want to take over now? You want to go? Go ahead. Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you very much.
Liz, once this corner, Liz. You guys keep doing it. I'm gonna read this. You just got in. Sure.
Isn't that amazing? I didn't see it. They're awesome.
But you know, I looked in very seriously.
Yeah.
Well, and I was about to know.
I mean, to put the. Yeah, it's gonna be a while. It's gonna be a few minutes. You had to go all the way back around the cemetery. And Liz,
Yeah.
the earth is now covered, the coffin is now covered, so there's some prayers we should make.
Okay.
They can still do it.
Yeah.
You guys
Okay,
keep
sorry.
doing it.
Yeah.
But I do.
Yeah, you guys keep
A little bit
continuing.
on this corner.
Yeah, it looks like the corners over here too. My friends, we're gonna recite a prayer. Oh, hey, your mouth. We're gonna recite a prayer called Tatin. Accept God's judgment upon our lives. Atzur tamim kalo kol dracham mishpat el emunah ve'im avel tzadik yasharu. Atzur tamim b'chol palal mi omar u'mat yifal. Asalit u'matav u'mal menit u'machayem u'ritchol v'yal. Atzur tamim b'chol pa'aseh mi omar u'mat ha'aseh u'mer v'oseh chesed chinam wanu ta'aseh u'mitzvot ha'ne'akat keseh ha'shiva v'aseh. Tzadik b'chol dracham atzur tamim ערך הפעמים ומלא רחמים, חמרנה וחוץ מהערות ובנים. שיעורך אדון הצפות לרחמים. צדיק אתה אדוני להעמיד האחיות אשר בידך פיקדון כל רוחות. היו לך זכרנו למחות, יונה עיניך ורחמים עלינו בטוחות. שיעורך אדון הרחמים והסליחות. אדם בן שנה יהיה העולם קדם יחיה. חי יתרון לו כלא היה יהיה ברוך דיין האמת כי מת ומחיה. ברוך הוא כי אמת דינו, משתית הכל בעינו, משלם לאדם חשבונו ודינו, והכל לשמו הודיה איתנו. ידענו אדוני כי צדק משפטיך, תצדק בדברך וצדקה בשבתך, ואין לערער לך מידת שבתך. צדיק אתה אדוני וישר משפטיך. דיין אמת, שופט צדק ואמת, ברוך ויען האמת שכל משפטן צדק ואמת. נפש כל חי בידיך, צדק מלא ימינך בידיך, ואחינו פליטת צור ידיך ותמר ומעוף הרף ידיך. גדול העצה ורב הראייה אשר ילך בשיחות, וכל דרכי בני אדם לתת לאיש כדרכיו, וכפי מעליו, להגיד ישר אדוני צורי ולאהבת לו. Adonai Natan, Adonai Lakach, Shem, Adonai Mevarach. The Lord has given and the Lord has taken. May the name of God be blessed forever and ever. We'll recite the memorial prayer for Hershel Tzvi and Avram Moshe and Miriam Mindel. תחס כנפי השכינה במעוז קדושים ותוארים כזרקיע מעטירים ושמעת הרשל צבי בן אברהם משה ומרים מנדל
Avram
שלחו
Moshe HaKohen. I realized I forgot.
בן אברהם משה הכהן הרשל צבי הכהן
Yeah.
בן אברהם משה הכהן ומרים מנדל שלחו עולמו בעבור שהמשפחה תתפרם בארץ הזכרת נשמתו בגן עדן תמנוחתו, אחרי מאור רחמים יעשו ותפר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצור בצור חיים במשפטו. ואולי לאחותו בינוך בשלום משכבו ונאמר אמן. Now, it is appropriate for the special Kaddish to be recited. Do you have the Kaddish prayer? Did Joyce give it to you?
Daddy has it on.
Or maybe Joyce has it. Do you have a Kaddish? Wait, 1 second.
It's not the.
Do you have the prayer? Hold on, they're going to bring it to you. Thank you, Joyce. So there's a special Kaddish which is recited only at the grave. At the very beginning, it ends in like 2 or 3 sentences, but then it's the same regular Kaddish. She's going to bring it. She has it in the right place. It's recited at the grave and also when you finish a tractate of Talmud.
Oh.
She's bringing one for
This is Rabbi Asher from this.
I have another one in the car.
yeah. Joyce wants to get it.
Thank you, Rabbi. Appreciate it.
We're going to say it in Hebrew. I'm guessing that Joyce's classes will have.
It's also transliterated in the last.
transliterated.
That's also yeah. It's transliterated on the last page of the thing.
Of this?
Yeah. Yeah, you can say it. You can say it in English also if you want. Rather than
Okay.
transliterated.
Okay, so here is this one. Okay.
There it is.
Here. I said, can you hold this for another so that my sister and I can.
Here's another one. Here's one.
The burial Kaddish.
Okay.
Am I allowed to say it, Daddy?
What? You want the transliteration or?
I don't.
Daddy, I don't say it, right?
No?
Yeah, traditionally the only people who say it
Really?
are the daughters, siblings, and spouses.
Well, regular burial,
Burial Kaddish,
page 5.
page 5. So let's listen to the Kaddish.
Eat Andrew here.
Okay.
Yikadal,
Yikadash, Nirava,
Amen.
Yama, Iti, Atin, La'achad, La'at, Padata, La'acha, Ya'a, Matya, Ula'achta, Yaton, L'chaye, Alma, Ulimibne, Karta, Yerushalayim, Ulish, Shach, Lala, Hefale, Nuya, Uli, Ma'akir, Falfana, Nuk, Ra'a, Nuhara, Le'ahava, Falfana, Ismaya, is it La'asare, La'asara, Vayamlit, Tuche, Turipu, Vimaltute, Vayikre, Vayefon, Yom Ephon, Paye, the whole Beit Israel, Adalah, Uvizman, Karim, Yimru, Amen.
Amen. Yahei Shalom.
Yehei Shmei, do I repeat that line?
Yeah.
Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mivarach Leolam Umei Omaya. Yifarach, Shabbat, Yifar, Yiframam, Yinaseh, Yifadar, Yifaleh, Yifalal, Shemei Kedishah, Bariyah. Le'ela, Nifo, Sirchata, Sirata, Sirchata, Senechamata, Daniran, Alma, Imru, Amen. Yehei Shmama Rabban Yishmaya, B'chayim Tovim Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael Yimru, Amen. Oseh Shalom B'Romav, U'ya'aseh Shalom Ve'al Kol Yisrael Yimru, Amen.
Now, what the practice is, everybody except for those four who just recited the Kaddish should make two lines facing each other, and then you should walk through those two lines, signifying the onset of your Shiva.
Whatever you say. What?
I have an idea for what we should do right after you walk through.
Okay.
As they walk through, let's say the phrase that you say to mourners, Makom.
Yes.
Yeah, so what we'll do is right after the mourners walk through and the Shiva begins, anyway, we're waiting for the machine to come and put the liner on top and fill with earth. But the Shiva started at this point. We could go over there and we'll do a mincha so that at least Liz and Julia and Leah and Julia, it's too dangerous for you because you have so much exposure to go to synagogue or to have a minyan. And at least we could say in-person minyan now. So it'll just take 5 or so minutes so you could say the Kaddish in person. And also have in mind the yard site for your grandfather is today too.
Yeah.
So say both Kaddishes in mind.
Wow.
So as you walk through, we'll say the phrase. I'm Makom. I'm Makom.
You want to stand up after and walk? You know how to do that.
Makom, you know, famous.
Yeah, here, so this one. Yeah, it's fine.
Ladies and gentlemen, those of you who stay a while, put the liner lid on, ask you to step back beyond the truck for me, please. The background can come in. Yeah, we're just going to down the minute.